Welcome back to the Gun Dungeon, guys. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to me, and that is our 10mm auto. So I was watching YouTube and I saw a Hickok 45 video that came up talking about is carrying a 10mm a liability. And he had some talking points, and I have some additional ones that I'd like to talk about as well. And, he didn't take a real hard stance on yes or no, kind of left it up to you, but he did kind of lean towards, from a legal standpoint, a potential liability there with 10mm and carrying it as a civilian. I just don't agree with that at all, not even in the least little bit. Some of the things that he used to support that narrative was, maybe it's a liability if you're not carrying one in bear country. Well, yeah, but here's the problem with that. Can it be used as a bear gun? Yeah. If you're talking about like grizzly country, it's not a very good one. Nobody really wants a 10mm in grizzly country. That's bottom of the line. That's as weak as you're going to go and feel even slightly comfortable about it. But think about this for just 1 second. Before we label 10mm as just a bear cartridge, why was it created? It was created due to the 1986 Miami-Dade shootouts being a failure on the 9mm part at that particular time with that particular ammunition. The FBI wanted a more powerful round for their agents to carry against humans, not against bears. That is a big point that everybody seems to forget here. 10mm was created for person-to-person self-defense, law enforcement. Is it carried now? No, but it has nothing to do with the legalities or anything to do with too much penetration or it's too lethal. No, it had to do with the FBI agents being weak little sissy girls that couldn't handle the recoil. That's why they went to 40 Smith & Wesson. They short and weakened the 10mm. That's what 40 Smith & Wesson is. It's a short, weak 10mm. They downloaded the 10mm so that they could shoot it and qualify with it. Realized they could use a smaller case, hence a smaller gun, because even a small 10mm is a chunky little boy to start with. Realized they could use a shorter case, fit it in a 9mm platform, and there was born 40 Smith & Wesson. 10mm was not created as a bear cartridge, a hunting cartridge, any type of anti-woods cartridge. Does it do that well? It can with the right ammunition selection, just like it can be a very good self-defense cartridge with the right ammunition selection. So as far as legalities goes, show me one single case where a self-defense case where the person who was in the right, a justified legal self-defense shooting, was convicted because of the cartridge they were carrying. Show me one single case. Harold Fish? Who's that? Oh, okay. Yeah, well, here's the thing. The Harold Fish case was clearly a corrupt justice system that got overturned, and that particular case actually ended up giving us more protections as civilians. And I'll put a couple links to the Harold Fish case down below, and you'll see where the problem was with Harold Fish's conviction in Colorado. And you'll also see that in these articles, it's not even mentioned what cartridge he was carrying. He did happen to be carrying a 10mm, but in these legal readings that you'll see, that's not even mentioned. It was just simply a very corrupt case, and they were trying to prove a point and use Harold Fish as an example, and it got overturned. Yes, it took him 3 years for it to get overturned, but it did ultimately get overturned, and it came out with legislation changes in our behalf that would help prevent that from happening again. So we can't really use that as our example of he was carrying a 10, therefore he got convicted. That had absolutely nothing to do with it on the real terms of things, even though forums and YouTubers will have you believe otherwise. Like I said, links are below. Read it for yourself. And like I said, show me a case. Show me an actual case where, if this person was using 9mm instead of 10mm, or instead of 357 SIG, or whatever, even a hand load, even if it was somebody carrying a hand load, because that's another one that's highly debated in this same structure. Show me one case where a good shoot got someone convicted because of what they were carrying. It doesn't exist. Now, I get it. A lot of people want to err on the side of caution, but I think this is one of those areas where people just hear something, it sets in their brain, and they just believe that's just the gospel without ever challenging the narrative. Guys, it doesn't exist. It sounds great, but it doesn't exist. And then here's the next thing that you hear all the time. Over-penetration. It's going to over-penetrate. It's just going to keep going through piles of people if you shoot somebody. Well, so will a 147 grain full metal jacket 9mm. It's all in the ammo you select. Will this round right here travel through a lot of material before it stops? Abso-freaking-lutely, but that's what it's supposed to do. It's a hard cast bullet. Will this 180 grain XTP do the same thing? No, it will not go nearly as far because it expands and it slows down. And matter of fact, the 180 grain gold dots that I typically carry in a 10mm barely even reach the 14-inch mark in gel. Sometimes they stop around 12 because they expand so much from the velocity, and that bullet is probably designed for 40 Smith & Wesson, but you stuff it in a 10, speed it up, it overexpands, underpenetrates. Yes, you can underpenetrate with a 10mm. Get you some 135 grain Underwoods and watch what happens in gel. It's all about ammo selection. You can over-penetrate with anything. You can under-penetrate with anything if the load is incorrect or if the load is geared towards that. That's just how it works. You can do it with 38 Special. 158 grain round nose 38 Special is going to dig deep, boys. It's a moot talking point. The penetration thing is a moot talking point. Let's just throw that in the garbage. It doesn't make any sense. So in the modern world of YouTube, they've made it really hard to actually make any revenue on YouTube. Can't really have sponsors in my videos anymore. Can't have links to certain things in the description anymore. Can't even show a lot of stuff we used to be able to show, even just 3-4 years ago. But if you want to support the channel, there are a couple ways to do it. I have a link to my Patreon down below. Patreon gets videos a couple weeks earlier, some behind the scenes content, exclusive content just for Patreon, and it helps the channel out. Also, I have shirts in a link below. Go check out shirts. I've designed them all myself. Not very creative, but you can check them out and take a look. I even have a coffee cup. But if you want to help the channel out, links are in the description below. Appreciate you guys. The next argument is, oh, well, nobody carries it. The law enforcement doesn't carry it anymore. FBI went away from it. Well, what does that matter? What does it matter what they carry? It was designed by the FBI. It was adopted by the FBI. They couldn't qualify with it, so therefore they moved away from it. They didn't move away from it because it was evil. Evil 10mm. No, it was because it was too much recoil. And if we're talking about liabilities, carrying a 10mm, that's really the only one I can think of. The only liability I can think of in carrying a 10mm is not legal. It is not anything to do with over-penetration. It has everything to do with the training requirements that come with carrying a 10mm. And what I mean by that is it does recoil quite a bit. It does come in a fairly large package at its smallest options. The Glock 29 is not a small gun for inside the waistband carry, in my opinion. Now, if somebody would come out with like a Shield 45 in 10mm Smith & Wesson, that would be fantastic. I would probably carry 10mm all the time. But, you know, when I don't want to carry a big chunky 10mm, I typically got a 9mm on me, or 357 SIG Shield. I like 357 SIG too, and guess what? It's pretty powerful. It's not a legal liability though. That's all there is to it, not a legal liability. But, like getting back on point here, carrying a 10mm, if you carry a 10mm and you train with a 9mm, it's not gonna be the same. That's probably a liability to you because your follow-up shots are gonna be very, very slow. Your recoil is going to come as a quite snappy surprise, and that's not exactly what you want in a self-defense situation. So if you carry a 10mm, you need to train with a 10mm, and train with a 10mm often, because they are not the same as a 9mm when it comes to handling them and recoil. They're going to be thicker, they're going to be a little bigger, and they're going to be snappy. It's just the nature of the beast. But it's no different than if you're going to carry a 357 Magnum. How long did state troopers carry 357 Magnums as standard issue? And guess what? They're ballistically very, very similar. So was carrying 357 Magnum a legal liability because it's the same terminal ballistics plane as a 10 millimeter? If carrying my 10 millimeter is a legal liability because of its kinetic energy and its terminal ballistic efficiency, then you carrying a 357 Magnum is just as much of a liability. That's all there is to it. Hope you enjoyed the video today, guys. Let me know your comments down below. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Until next time, guys, stay tuned.